Welcome to the Melodies with Morgan podcast. I'm so excited about this episode. This is episode number 8, and this one is called Chord Inversions. And we're going to be talking about what chord inversions are, how they help you play piano, and then why the 1-4-5 chord progression is not great and what we should replace it with. So very, very excited about this episode today because it is the first episode that I'm going to be putting on my YouTube channel. I have been producing a lot of YouTube shorts, mini lessons, but this one is going to be the full entire podcast episode on the YouTube channel. So if you're watching it on the YouTube channel, awesome. We're going to be including the piano notes, so you're going to see exactly what I'm playing as we go through today's podcast. So let's jump in. So we're going to be talking about chord inversions first, and then how those relate to the 1-4-5 chord progression. And our 1-4-5 chord progression would be the warm-up that everyone learns if you're taking classical piano lessons. The 1-4-5 from C to the F to the C to the G7 back to the C. But for now, before we get to that part, let's go through chord inversions. I brought my pens with me. I take a pack of colored pens to all of my one-on-one lessons that I teach. And for teaching inversions, I let my students pick out 3 colors. So today I've chosen pink, orange, and yellow. And for an inversion, what we're going to do is basically swap the position of the piano chord notes. Now, why would we need to use chord inversions? There's really a couple reasons why. One reason would be if we're playing a chord progression, instead of playing our chord in root position, like C root position, C, E, and G, and then jumping to F, F, A, C, F root position, and then jumping to the G chord, it sounds very choppy. But when we use chord inversions, we can keep these chords in one general spot on the piano. We can go from here, from the C, then we can go to the F right here, and then the G, and then back to the C using this inversion. Or let's say we're combining it with our left-hand octaves. So we have this inversion here for the C, F, G, back to the C. That sounds a lot more fluid, like a song, compared to jumping from one spot to the other on the piano. Now, how it helps us play by ear is anytime we're playing a song by ear, every melody note is going to be paired with a set of harmony notes. Our harmony notes are determined from those chords. So let's say our song is Amazing Grace. All of these beginning notes from Amazing Grace come from our C inversion. And then our next melody note comes from the top note of the F chord. And then our next melody note, G, is the top note of our C chord, played down low. Now we're at another C inversion, or actually, we're at C second inversion. Here's G, also G inversion. So let's do the pen game real quick with learning what chord inversions are. So a chord inversion means that we take a note. We're going to start with a C. I'm going to put the pink pen on the C right here. And then I'm going to put the orange pen on E. Then I'm going to put the yellow pen on G. Now, if I were to just press these pens all together on C, E, and G, we would create the C root position. But now let's take this pink pen. We're going to move it up 1 octave from here, and we're going to pop it all the way up to here. The orange pen and the yellow pen stayed on E and G, and the pink pen moved up 1 octave to the next C. We're going to press all the pens together. Ooh, it's kind of hard to press with the pens. There we go. So now we have the C chord played in the order E, G, C. Now we're going to take the orange pen and move it up an octave from this E all the way up to this E. The yellow and the pink pens stayed on the G and the E. We're just moving the bottom pen up an octave. Now we have G, C, E, played in that order. Now we're going to take our yellow pen, move the G up an octave to here. And then we're going to play our 3 pens together, and we have arrived back at the original chord, C root position, up an octave. So there are 3 different ways we can play a chord because there are 3 different notes in our chord, and we can stack those notes in any way we want to. We don't have to play a C chord right here in the middle just using C, E, and G. We can play those notes in a different stack or a different order. So I could play it E, G, C. that was our first inversion. And then our next one was the G, C, E. And then right now we're up here at the C, E, G with these pens. So chord inversion just means you're taking your notes from your original chord and you're stacking them in a different order than they were before. Also, this begs the question. I love when students just want to know the extremes. So let's go over the extremes. The extreme case would be, okay, so if C, E, and G together is a chord, would that mean that I can press a C here? I can press an E here and a G here. I'm going to move these pens out of the way. Would that still be a chord? Yes, that would still be a chord because we have C, E, and G. That kind of sounds good. So what if we duplicated some notes in our chord? What if we did C, C, G, E? This would still be the C chord because we're using C, E, and G. We can double as many notes as we want to. We can try to double, I'm going to do C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E. All this, still just the C chord. So you can put the notes in whatever order you want to. That would be called the inversions. Doubling notes just makes it sound more full. So what the pens help us do is visualize where that inversion is going to be on the piano. The most important thing about inversions is to look at the piano keys, because if you can see the pattern, C, E, G, and then still imagine those pens in your head as you're playing your chord inversions, instead of playing with the pens all the time, now we're just going to, in our head, think, okay, I'm going to take this C, I'm going to pop it up an octave up to here. Now I'm going to play this group of notes. E, G, C, all together like that. I'm going to take the E, pop it up an octave up here, play this group of notes all together. Our second inversion. I'm going to take the G, pop it up an octave. Now here's our first inversion again. And then to practice this, you'd want to go all the way up the piano, root, first inversion, second inversion, root position, first inversion, second inversion, root position, first inversion, second inversion, root position, first inversion. It works on the way down too. It's just the opposite pattern. So we can take our C chord, C, E, G, take this G, pop it down an octave, play these notes just like this. Now we have E on the top, C in the middle, G on the bottom. We can pop E down an octave from here all the way down to here. And then we have C on the top, G in the middle, E on the bottom. And then if we pop C down an octave from middle C to bass C, we have C root position down an octave. And then we can keep going down the piano with our left hand to get familiar with these inversions. The great thing about chord inversions is that you can practice chord inversions all over the piano. You can start in the center and then just go up, 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 up. You can practice them blocked, where you play the notes all at once together like this. And then you can practice them broken, where you play one note at a time, 1, 2, 3. And then you just cruise up the piano. Here's our first chord, C root position, and then C first inversion, C second inversion, and then we just go. You can go down the piano with left hand, same idea. Now, these inversions work for any chord, including the chords on the black keys. So let's say we are playing the D major chord. So our D major chord includes D, F sharp, and A. And if we take this D, we pop it up an octave. Now F sharp is on the bottom, A is in the middle, D is on the top. You might just have to scoot your hand in closer to the actual piano itself so that your thumb can reach that F sharp. And then we can easily play F sharp, A, D. Now if we take this F sharp, pop it up an octave, now we have the notes in the order A, D, F sharp. This is also an inversion. If we pop A up an octave, then we've arrived at D, F sharp, and A, D root position, 1 octave higher. Root, first inversion, second inversion. And then we just keep going. Root, first inversion, second inversion, root, first inversion, second inversion. It's always important to imagine that swap in your head though. So you want to be able to see that first note and then boop, pop it up just like that. You want to be able to see the F sharp, pop it up. See the A, pop it up, even when you're just practicing with one hand. So now at this point, we can just swap that note up in our head. We go, okay, D goes from here up to that next octave. And your two of your notes are always going to remain the same. All right, these chord inversions help us to go from one chord to the next very, very smoothly. For example, let's take our D chord and then go to a G chord. So I could go from this D chord and then do some thinking in my head. I could go, okay, I could play G here, G, B, D, or I could take this D, pop it down an octave here because my thumb was already on D for the D chord. And if I just move 2 notes, G and B, now I have D, G, B, which is G second inversion. It's a lot of thinking. You want to go from the D chord to the G chord, and then from here we could go to the D chord, we could go to the A chord, which would be A, C sharp, E, or we can swap that C sharp, E, A to this order. So now we can go from here to A, back to D, to G, to D, to A, to D. Oh, isn't that cool? And our hand basically stayed at the same spot the whole time. We didn't really have to move around a lot. Now, left hand, since it's doing the octaves or the underlying bass, it's almost like a duplicate of a bass guitar. It's just going to underline that octave from your chord. The left hand is going to have to jump from the D octave to the G octave to the D octave to the A octave. And that's going to create that rich sound back to the D. Ooh, so that one I changed. Instead of doing the D root position, I changed it to the D second inversion so that we could end hearing that F sharp. Ooh, that sounds so good. So why, let's go to part two of this episode. Why does the 1-4-5 chord progression why is it not great to learn at first? Why is it not as helpful as it could be? So the 1-4-5 chord progression, if we go back to the key of C, it comes from the scale degrees, number 1, scale degree number 1, scale degree number 4, and scale degree number 5. And then from there, they built an entire chord, a triad, off of each note, 1, 4, and 5 of the scale. So if we are in the key of C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's our scale degrees. If we build a triad, meaning note, skip a note, play a note, skip a note, play a note, or technically skip a scale degree. Scale degrees would be considered important if we're playing in a key that has a lot of sharps or a lot of flats, because you can't always just trust the white keys. But if we're in the key of C, we only use the white keys. So the C chord is C, E, and G. The F chord, if we built a chord off of F, we would have F, skip, play A, skip B, play C. Now we have F, A, C. Now we build a chord off of G, we play G, we skip A, play B, skip C, play D. And we just have 3 chords, our 3 diatonic major chords from that key, played in the order C, F, G. Now what the 1-4-5 chord progression does is it takes the C chord, and then from here we go directly to the F inversion. That's why our thumb stays on the C. Originally this C would be included up here to form that F chord, but they popped the C down here to make us able to easily go from the C chord to the F inversion, back to the C chord, and then the G7. What is the G7? So the G7 means we took this G chord here and we added the 7th note to that chord. So we start at G and we count 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're just going to add F to the G chord. Anytime you see a chord followed by a number, it means add that number to your chord starting on the first note of your chord. So G7, we would add note number 7. G6, we would add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'd add note number 6. G2, we would add the second note to our chord. Usually we leave out the third because it could clash, or it could sound kind of good. Depends which one you prefer. So anytime we see a number, we add that note, like G9. G add 9 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like that. So a number means you add that note. So now our G7 chord uses G, B, D, F, but they put this one in an inversion as well. So let's find the inversion. We're going to bring F down an octave. Now we're still not at the original spot, F, G, B, D, so we're going to bring D down an octave. Now we have D, F, G, B. We're still not there, so we're going to bring B down an octave. Now we have B, D, F, G. There we go. And then back to our C root position. So all together, we have C root, F second inversion, C root, G7 first inversion. And we know it's the first inversion because if we start with G, B, D, F, earlier we went down to find that inversion, but you always go up to find what inversion you're on. G7 root would just start on G, G, B, D, F. First inversion means you go up once. You invert it one time. So now we have B, D, F, G. That's our G7 first inversion. And then back to our C root. So C, F, C, G7, C. So typically we just learn these chord progressions, bump, 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 cruise through them without understanding where the chords came from and where the inversions came from. There's just a lot of information that's not unpacked when we're learning those. How does that relate? One last thought. How does that relate to the key of D? Let's try one with a sharp in it. So we have our key of D, D, F sharp, and A. And then we go from here to the D, G, D, A7, D. If we wanted to find these chords where they came from on the scale, our D major scale degrees are D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So we have two sharps in this scale or in this key, and our scale degrees are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We always have 7 scale degrees. And then that 8th one is just the same note up an octave. So that's just number 1 again up there. So then we're going to build our chords diatonically on the scale degree number 1, number 4, and number 5. So scale degree number 1, we play a note, skip E, play the next scale degree, which is F sharp, skip G, play A. Here's our D chord. Now we're going to begin a chord on G, G, skip A, play B, skip C sharp, or D flats. It should be C sharp. I'm going to change it real quick. So then we have we have G, skip A, play B, skip C sharp, play D. We have our G chord, and then we have our 5th scale degree. Number 5 would be A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the D major scale. So we play A, skip B, play C sharp, skip D, play E. And now we have our A major chord. So then our 1, 4, 5 chord progression, we have 1, 4, 5. Chords number 1, chord 5, and chord 1, chord 4, and chord 5. So now we're going to put it in that inversion pattern where we have the D, G inversion, because we had our G chord here. We popped the D down, back to D root, A7. Whoa, where did that 7 come from? We have our A chord, either here or here. I'm going to just play it down here for now. A. So anytime you're playing your 7 chord, you want to start from the note of that beginning chord. That chord is A, so we're going to start at A and count 7 notes up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So our 7th note is G. We add that note in to our A chord plus G, and then we're going to invert it. So A, instead of being here, is up here. Now there's our A7 first inversion. Back to the D chord. We can duplicate it with our left hand. We could add in left hand octaves where we have the D, G, D, A, D. So that is our complete lesson on what chord inversions are, how to use them, and then why the 1, 4, 5 pattern can be difficult to learn at first if we don't understand the chord inversions happening in that pattern and where they came from. So be sure to subscribe to my newsletter, to my email list, and I offer special things only available in the emails, additional content, and you can find that on my website, www.melodieswithmorgan.com. And if you've been listening on the podcast, I encourage you to check out the YouTube channel. If you're watching from the YouTube channel, this is episode number 8. So episodes 1 through 7 are only available on the podcast. And then episode number 8 is where I started including the video format. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson, and I'll see you next time.